Good morning, this is VirtualPBX admin training. Good morning, this is VirtualPBX admin training. Just gonna give a minute or so until we actually dive in full bore. Alright, sorry for the slightly delayed start there. So on our screen here, we have our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also navigate there from the VirtualPBX website. If you go to virtualpbx.com and mouse over support, and there should be a link at that point that says dash login. You would click on that and you would be on this page. Now, typically for logging in, you do need your email address. Make sure it's on all lowercase. Your password, which should have been sent to you via email, and then the account name, which is typically the company name. Now, for some reason, you don't have the information or you forgot the password. Over here on the bottom right, we have forgot your info. You just click on that link there. And we still need your email address. But then we need one of the two of the following: either the account name, right, some company name, or a phone number that's already on the account, right? So just one of those two. Then you click on reset password. The system will send you an email with a link to get you logged in to change your password specifically. After you've changed your password, it will log you back out to basically make you use your new password, and then gives you the chance to click on remember me. Right, so that way you don't have to keep typing it in going forward. And then you get logged in. Now, I'm right here on our dashboard, which is your typical start point, unless it's your first time logging in. The first time you log into an account, it'll take you to your account page, which is, you can get there by clicking on your name here at the top. Right, so on your user information, you can change your email address and your password, as well as your time zone. Now, I'm an admin, so I also have the account settings. And also, that first time logging in, a little wizard pops up, with the pop-up windows letting you know what certain things are. But on the account level, the main thing that people change is right here, the time zone, right? To make sure they're in the correct time zone for their headquarters. Now, this is a test account that's been around for a long time. For your accounts, you're also going to have a section here for your billing information. So things like, be under the user section here. There would be things for like updating your credit card. You can update your, sorry about that, your billing contact information. You could see your service plan, check your invoices, that sort of thing. Now, when you're done in here, you would just click on close, and then you'll be back on your dashboard. Along the top here, so again, clicking on your name takes you to the account page. Little help icon here, and you've got these little sub options. So first, you got chat with us. This will open up a chat window with our support team. Right, learn more takes you to the support pages, so you can look at the various guides that we have created, as well as some videos. The online store, this takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. This is where you would order like a VoIP phone or a router, that sort of thing. And then this fourth one here is a web phone. Now, this one only shows up after you've added a web phone to your user. Right, if you don't have one, then there'll be a blank spot, so there'll only be 3 active links. And the web phone just lets you use Chrome or Firefox on a desktop or laptop computer to make and receive calls over your internet connection. Over here, we've got the hamburger or the menu icon. These takes you to other features of Dash. Some of these are fairly specialized, and like ACDQs also have a feature cost, right? They're not a standard part of plans. And then the logout icon. Over here on the left, these are the other, the main features of Dash. Most of these are core features, the exceptions being the auto attendance, for sure, and advanced routing may not show up on every account, but we'll get into that a bit later. And then here in the middle, this is your dashboard, basically giving you a snapshot of your account status. Right, so here I got total users of 20. Some plans, you're billed on a per user basis, so adding a user would increase your bill. Other plans, they're a minute pool, so they can have as many users as they want, but they all share the same amount of minutes. Next up, you have total devices. I've got 44, and then I have a breakdown here. So first up, I've got 16 cell phones. All right, and then I've got 14 soft phones. Soft phone is a software application that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. We have our own application here at VirtualPBX, so that would include that. You could also be third-party applications, so you can get, like, say, a cell phone application from a company called Counterpath. That would be bundled in here. And lastly, a cell phone could also denote a physical phone that was not supported by Dash, so you had to program it manually. Then we've got web phone. This is a kind of soft phone, right? It uses Chrome or Firefox, as I mentioned before, but it's been separated out just because I believe it's currently free on all plans, versus soft phones can be charged. That's why they separated them out. Landline, the old school telephone, right? And then SIP phone. This is the physical VoIP phone, sits on a desk. Again, uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. Now you see down here, I have unregistered devices. I have 20, right? So almost half of my phones. That means Dash can detect if a VoIP phone is connected, meaning it's connecting to us so we can send and receive calls, right? When we get to the devices page, you'll see like green and red devices. Green means it's registered, i.e. connected to us. Red means it's unregistered, meaning it's not connected to us. All right, next we got total numbers. I have 29. Now, on our plans, you have anywhere from 2 to 15 phone numbers included as part of your plan price, meaning you have basically a pool of numbers that you can have that you're not going to get charged for because that's already included in your plan. Now, if you go over that allotment, then you would be charged an additional amount per number, anywhere from $1.99 to I believe it's $4.99 per month per phone number. For anything I mentioned that has pricing, you're going to want to check with our account services team, and they can verify what your pricing is. Yeah, I'm going off memory, and I don't have information, much less know what your plan specifically is. So anyway, no matter what, I am well over my allotment, so I am getting charged over for my phone numbers. Then here you see I've got a breakdown here, first for assigned numbers and spare numbers. So an assigned number means it's a number I'm using, right? It goes someplace. It's one of these main numbers here to the right, for example. Or it's a number that I have going directly to one of my users, or to a ring group, or to an ACD queue, right? Basically, someone can dial that number and expect that it's going to connect in some fashion, whether that's going to a voicemail or going to a fax box or to a person, right? It's still working in some fashion. A spare number, this is a number on my account, but I'm not using it, right? So I'm over my allotment, so I'm still paying for these three numbers even though I'm not using them, right? But that's because maybe I'm saving them for, say, an upcoming 4th of July promotion here in the US, or I was able to get a set of 10 numbers in sequence, and I just haven't gotten to the last 3 of them. This next breakdown, US DID and US toll-free. Now the toll-free should actually be US Canada toll-free, right? This is 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833 currently. US DID, that just means a US local phone number, right? So that can be a number in, say, San Jose, California, versus a number in Dallas, Texas, or a number, say, in Elmira, New York, right? Anything like that. You can have international phone numbers on your account if you're interested in doing that or acquiring one. You're going to want to email our porting team, which is porting at virtualpbx.com. They'll need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. and they will let you know if there's additional requirements. Some countries require like a proof of presence, like a utility bill, in the city that you're requesting in. Others don't. Just depends. All right, next up we got conference bridges. This just means I have 6 users that I have enabled the ability to host or moderate a conference. And then we go over here to the top right. We've got our main numbers. So all these numbers behave in the same fashion. They're all going to be routing to the same location. They're all going to have the same main greeting. All right, next up, we've got my conference number. Now you can have multiple conference numbers if you're so inclined, but this is what everyone would dial to access the conference bridges. When you connect, the system will ask, you will say, welcome to the conference, and ask you for the conference room number and then the PIN number. The fax box number, you can have one on your account. This enables faxing on the account in general, but this is your inbound fax number. Next, we have the company directory. It's a download link. Oops. Anyway, this downloads a text file. Basically shows all your users with their extension numbers. The cell phone directory. This is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop cell phone application specifically. Basically, you download this file, upload it to your cell phone, and then you can see the status of your other staff members in relation to the cell phone, right? So if you have all your staff is on the cell phone, then you can see, oh, coworker Joe, he's on a call. I can't talk to him right now. But then you'll see when he gets off the call, then you can give him a call and say, hey, we need to talk about, customer Mary. All right, next up, we've got the store discount code. Just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount in our online store. And then lastly, we have this account realm. This is specific to your account. This is used in a couple different things. One is used to program a third-party soft phone or VoIP phone. All right, there's 3 pieces of information that we provide in terms of how to set up a third-party soft phone. Right, there's the SIP username, the SIP password, and the account realm. You need those 3 things to be able to make that software work with us, or a VoIP phone in that regard. The other thing the account realm is used for is for sending out a fax. So currently on Dash, sending out a fax is via email, right? So you create an email address. In the to field of that email, you put the plus sign, the number 1, area code and phone number, a little @ symbol, and then the account realm, and then you attach a PDF or TIFF. Then click send. Right. So basically what happens is the system, right, you don't need to type in the email, right? The system just gets the email, looks at the to field to know where to send to and where it's coming from, and then grabs the first attachment and then sends that out. All right, up here we've got the caller ID. You select one of your main numbers. Unfortunately, the pull down isn't working here on my streaming software, but you can pull any of your main numbers, right? This becomes your default or main number for a couple other features. Then here you've got the company caller ID name or CNAME. You have up to 15 characters. That includes spaces and special characters that you can have show up on your outbound calls. All right, so this is when you pick up a VoIP phone, make an outbound call. By default, this phone number will show up as the outbound caller ID number, and then we'll also transmit this caller ID name as well. Once you click save, change it down here at the bottom. Now, a couple things to keep in mind about the CNAME is that not every carrier supports CNAME. So if your call happens to route through one of those carriers that doesn't support it, your CNAME information will not go through. And then ultimately, it's the device that's receiving that call. Their carrier determines what shows up on their phone's display. All right, next up, we've got the company emergency information, or E911, and you just want to put an address associated with this phone number. So again, if someone picks up a VoIP phone, and dials 911, this would be the default address information that's sent to emergency services. Now, every phone number, you can have its own E911 address information, so you can assign different E911 to different VoIP phones based on their location. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, one thing to keep in mind about the CNAME information specifically is that after you click Save Changes, and hopefully you don't get an error like I just got, that gets transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME. It can take up to 3 business days for them to update their servers. That's not something we can control, unfortunately. Next up, we have hold music. Now, hold music on Dash is after a call has reached a user and they've pressed hold on their VoIP device. That's when this hold music file would play. You can upload your own file. You can browse on your computer. You can add either a .mp3, a .ogg, or a .wav file. So I could add this one, for example, if I wanted to. And then you would click the up arrow icon here to upload the file, or the X to cancel. But once you've uploaded, then you would click on Save Changes. And then now when anyone puts a caller on hold, that's the file they hear. One thing about uploading the file, along with the file type, you want to record in mono, and you want to make sure it's under 1 megabyte in size. All right, ours actually falls under main number, so we're just going to go down main number in order. All right, so main number, or the main company numbers, if you click on this. So here, you can see all your main numbers. You have a little gear icon. Anytime you have a number, if you see a gear icon, that means you can edit its caller ID individually. All right, so I can add CNAM up here. I can also turn on allowing inbound CNAM to show up on my staff members' phones. All right, I can set up the E911 specific to this phone number. All right, and then you can click on prepend. Sorry about that. Prepend is for your VoIP phone users. This allows you to put, some, in this case, text in front of the caller ID that shows up on their VoIP phone's display. Right, so a call comes in on this phone number. They're gonna, and it goes to my staff members. They're gonna see the word promo, and then the inbound person's phone number. Right, so this gives them an idea of what the call might be about. Now, for your main numbers, you can add from spare numbers here. Right, so I can add like this 703 number if I wanted to. So now I have added another main number. Or I can also buy new numbers, right? So toll-free, pretty straightforward. You just choose a toll-free prefix you like. And then you can see the numbers listed here. You can just click add. It adds it to your little cart down here. It shows the number. You can remove it from the cart if you're so inclined. And then you would click on buy numbers. All right, this is just verifying with the system that the number was actually available, and then now it's adding it to the account. And now you see it's been added. Likewise, for local numbers, you have to know the area code that you want to add. All right, you click buy local, and then you need to enter in the area code. So let's go with let's go 650. Right, and again, same process. You just click add the number, click buy numbers. Oops. Let's try that again. Assuming my mouse will work with me here. There we go. I think I need to get a new mouse. Okay, and this is behaving more normally. Right, so now I've got all these numbers as main numbers. Now, if I decide I don't want a number to be a main number anymore, or I want to repurpose it for something else, right? So first then I want to unassign that number. Getting an odd amount of errors today. But once it's unassigned, it doesn't mean you've lost the number. It just goes into spare status. Oh, okay, that handled normally. Interesting. I'm not sure what's going on with that. All right, so after you've added main numbers, then you can look at your office hours strategy. For new accounts, when you first open up, you start off with 24-hour open office, meaning your numbers will not ring busy. Right. If you go custom office hours, once you check that, then for each day of the week that you're open, you want to put a check mark in front of it, and then select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. You also have the option at the very bottom to choose if you're closed for lunch. So you put a check mark saying yes you are, and then you include your lunch hours. That's going to affect the entire account. So that's something to be aware of. Then there's office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, you put a check mark here. And then over here to the right, you click on Add Holiday. You have your option for single day, date range, or advanced. If you click on either one, any of these, it'll create a new row. And then you simply type in a name like President's Day, and you select the month and the day, right? For single day, date range, we have like here for Christmas, right? Start date, end date. Now the thing here, notice that there's no year indicator, so you do not want a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And you see here we have a separate option here for New Year's Day right here, as well as New Year's Eve. And then for that advanced option, that's this one here for retreat, where I'm saying, hey, the first Friday in July, we're on holiday, right? It's company picnic day, right? So this first pull down is the months. The second pull down is 1st through 5th, as well as last, and then the day of the week, right? Sunday through Saturday. And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, next up we got incoming call handling. I'm gonna switch mice here for a minute because some weird behavior going on. All right, so incoming call handling, you notice we have tabs across here. You have open hours. I have lunch hours because I opted to say I'm closed for lunch. All right, after hours because I'm on custom office hours, as well as holidays since I said I'm closed for holidays. First option here, call comes in, it's going to my virtual receptionist. If I click on this will bring up my virtual receptionist. On my left here is the main menu. This is what people press on their phone to navigate through their phone system. Right. On the right, first up we have my greetings. Right. This is where you say thank you for calling, your company name. You can include any kind of special promotions or directions, anything like that in your greeting. But you do want to include directions, right, in terms of what to press to get to where. All right, first up, we've got text to speech. Right, you simply type in a greeting here, and you would click update, scroll down and click save, and then save changes under incoming call handling. The text to speech greeting, you have up to 250 to 350 characters to work with. It can obviously be less than that, but there we have hit that limit of around 350 characters with several customers. This is good for if you're new to PBX systems in general, or you're a startup, basically where you're just trying to get a feel for what things are, how you want the phone system to work for you. right? Because it's very quick, it's easy, etc. Now, one thing to keep in mind is every time you click update, it saves a file, but it gives each time you click update, it gives it the same file name, right? It'll say main open hours menu TTS, right? So if I click update, right, then I type in another couple words, I click update again, I'll have two files with the exact same name, but I don't know which one is which. What I recommend for people to do is when they do a text-to-speech greeting, after they've clicked update and save, go to the greetings manager and rename that file to something that's more easily identifiable. So that way, if they do need to make an update, they know that the new main open hours TTS file that's the new one they just created versus an older version. You can upload your own file, again, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You just find the file on your computer and then click update, save, and then save changes. You can choose from an existing recording. This will be a pull down, so it will show all your available recordings that you can choose from. And then you would simply click update and then save and save changes. Recorded over the phone. Now, when the system says pick a phone, register to the account, it is saying to use a VoIP phone that's already on the account. If you want to use a cell phone or landline, then you want to go down here under settings and see allow outside recording. You want to turn this on. When that's on, that means a cell phone or landline user can call in, and then they can use, if they know the PIN number, they can use this PIN number to record a greeting over the phone. Now, if you've just started, not a big deal. You can just call in and then the system will prompt you to enter a PIN and then walk you through recording a new greeting. And it'll give it a generic name. If you have a greeting in place, right? So let's say I have greeting A is associated, or say it's have it selected or choose from an existing recording, right? Then I call in. So greeting A is playing, right? When that greeting file plays, I enter the PIN number. The system will then walk me through recording a new greeting. However, I don't have an option to give that new recording a new name, right? It'll just save it and it'll overwrite the file of greeting A, right? So greeting A, the file name stays the same, but I just overwrote the content. So if, say, greeting A is actually your typical main greeting for most of the year, right? You only switch it out for like holidays or special promotions. Then before you record over the phone, you're going to want to switch out greeting A to something else and then record it over the phone, right? Because otherwise you have to go back and find a greeting A and upload it. Right. Professional recording services. When you click order, this will take you to another website hosted by Snap Recordings, who we've partnered with. They have about 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have various versions of English, Spanish, and French, so you can also do multilingual greetings. They also have what they refer to as hold treatment, right? So a music file and then a script being read. They handle their own billing. They send the file to you via email, so then you can just upload your own file, and you're all set. Next up, we have settings. So number of retries on missed dial. Basically, what you're saying is if the inbound caller hits an invalid option, right? How many times can they do that, right? So I'm saying they get one retry, right? So they call in and they say they hit 7, right? Not a valid option. The system gives them one more try, right? Dialing timeout. This is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press before it moves on. Right, so I press 7, and it's going to wait for about 10 seconds, and there's that's an invalid option. Right, versus if I pressed 8, right, it'll wait that 10 seconds and then send it to that voicemail box. Right, allow outside recording. If that's on, that allows a cell phone or landline user to record a voicemail greeting, or main greeting, excuse me. Allow dialing extensions. If this is off, then when an inbound call calls in, they can only press these menu options, right? Now, if I have it on, they can then enter the extension number if they know it, right? So they can enter Bob's extension number. The suppress playing of invalid entry. So if this is off and I press 7, the system will tell me that's an invalid option, right? Then place them in greeting. If I turn this on, it's not going to say anything, but then you'll get the greeting replay. In terms of the main menu, right, clicking on add route, that gives you the option to create a new row. Unfortunately, the pull down is not working here, but you have 0 through 9 as well as a star. And then you have various locations. So like if we look at this one here, Smart Directory, right? That's the dial by name directory, right? You can select any user on the account. You can select it to a specific device. The main thing about when sending it to a device, you want to make sure that device has like a voicemail or something like that, because if no one picks up at that phone, then eventually the system just ends the call, which might be a little disruptive to your inbound caller. You can select a media file, basically just plays a greeting. But once that greeting file is done, the system then ends the call. Groups, this is a ring group, right? So you can send it to a department, essentially. Advanced call flows, these are if you're making use of submenuing. So like 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, right? You can have 2 different, those 2 options would be submenus. When you click 2, go to Spanish, you get a Spanish greeting, and then your menu options would go to your Spanish-speaking staff members, for example. And you can send it to voicemail boxes. Now, if you make any changes to the main menu, the greetings, or the settings, click on Save here. And then you click on Save Changes over here under Incoming Call Handling. That way, all your changes got saved. All right, this option 2 here, this is the live operator option, right? So call comes in. I'm offering it to Mike here. And if he doesn't pick up, it's going to go to the virtual receptionist. This is a pull down, so I can select any other user. I can also select a ring group. I can also send a call queue. Devices. The advantage here of sending it to devices, after 20 seconds, the system will automatically send it to the virtual receptionist if no one picks up. You can do a media file. I don't recommend that just because it basically your inbound caller will hear 2 media files. Rather hear this initial one, then they'll get to the virtual receptionist and they'll hear another one, and that can be confusing to people. Right, you can send it to a ring group, and then your advanced call flows. So like for the groups, right, this would be like, you can say you have a receptionist group, right? So then the call comes in, they all have an opportunity to answer. If they can't, then it goes to this virtual receptionist. Again, we're under open hours, so it's that same virtual receptionist we were just looking at. Option 3, call comes in. I'm offering it to Mike here. If he doesn't pick up, it's going to his voicemail box. Right, same options here, right? You can send it to any user. You can send it to a media file. You can send it to a group, a queue, any other user, your device, etc. You have one extra one here, which is just skip to voicemail. And then here, you just select whatever voicemail box you want to send it to. This last option doesn't show up on every account. It will only show up if you have what's referred to as an advanced call flow, which is multiple auto attendants, or if you've activated the direct inward system access feature. Now, over here, lunch hours, right? You have these same options, and if you select virtual receptionist, for example, right, it's a different menu, right? You can have your own greeting. It's not letting me select it. There we go. All right, so for lunch, I have a different attendant. Right, after hours, same thing. You can have a different attendant or a different routing. Right, holidays, this is the most common where I see it's down here, where it's just, let's go to this voicemail box, right? because we're not here, but we'll get back to you as soon as we're back in the office. All right, main conference number. You can add multiple, right? You can add from spare, buy new numbers, same process as before, right? Local or toll free. You also have the option for a custom text-to-speech greeting. You click enable and type in what you want it to say, and then you would click on save. Even if you don't do this, right? If you leave it disabled, when you call the conference number, the system does say welcome to the conference, and then asks you to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. Main fax box, you can have one fax box number. So if I didn't have this here, it would have the option to buy new or add from spare. This fax box unfortunately is broken just because of how this account is. This was basically a beta account essentially. But when you click on edit fax box on your accounts, you'll have a pop-up with two fields. The first field is the inbound notifications, right? So you put an email address, and whenever inbound fax comes through, that email address gets an email with saying, hey, you have a fax, and then I'll have an attachment that they can double click on and view the fax. Now that email address will also get a failed inbound notification. Say if someone calls this fax number, here's the fax tone and hangs up, right? That email address will get a notification there was a failed inbound attempt. Something to be aware of. Now the second field is for the outbound permissions. So you can add an email address there, for example, but typically it's designed to put in your own company domains email address, right? So the @ at abccleaners.com, right? So then anyone at your company can then send a fax out as long as they have the proper format. They don't necessarily have to be a user on your Dash account. All right, auto attendants. So auto attendants have this is a plan-specific feature, right? So not every plan has it. If you end up being interested in making sure that you want to have multiple attendants on your account, you're going to want to talk to our account services team. Two main use cases that we come across. The first is when you have multiple businesses, right? So you want them to have their own phone numbers, their own main greetings. But then you have multiple staff members handle these calls from multiple businesses, right? So multiple businesses on the same account, going to the same staff members, but they have their own phone numbers, own greetings. The second use case I already mentioned actually was the submenuing, right? Where you want to have one for English, two for Spanish, and that sort of thing. And those menu options themselves go down another level of menus, right? So then I can have another greeting and another set of menu options. All right, so creating an attendant, click add attendant at the top. You give it a name and an extension number, and then you click on create attendant. Once an attendant is created, you can click on the name. You see here, this one is unavailable in main menu. This is essentially meaning I want this to be a standalone attendant, likely meaning it's its own business. Whereas this one here, right, you see it's available in main menu. That means it's a submenu option, right? So I could put it here under the Jade, one of its menu options, or I can put it under my main menu, right? This is a toggle, right? So I could flip it to make it available in main menu or back and forth, depending on how I want to do it. Phone numbers tab. Per box, you can add from spare, buy new numbers. All right, here's the extensions box. All right, you can add additional extensions if you want, as well as unassign the existing extension. And then you've got the little wrench icon here under settings. And you see here, I have tabs, right? Open hours, lunch hours, after hours, and holidays. These times or dates, in case of for holidays, right? Those will match what we set up under the main number. So if you have two businesses, but one of them you want open 7 days a week, and the other is only open 5 days a week, you're not going to be able to use the auto attendants in that fashion, at least out of the box. You would need to contact our account services team because you would either need to do a custom or advanced configuration of basically we need the full scope of what you're trying to do, and basically bring it up to our product specialist team. They would verify if that can be done and what, if any, cost would be associated with that. That would be like usually a one-time setup fee. Or the most common option is people just make a second account, and the 7-day-a-week business has its own separate account where the 5-day-a-week business is on its account. But again, this is the virtual receptionist, so that's the only option routing option you have on all these. But you create your menu options, right? Adding routes, you can have your own greetings, etc. All right, on devices, this shows all the devices on the account. Green means it's registered or connected, right? So we can send a call to it. Red means it's unregistered, meaning we cannot send a call to it, right? Not connected to us. And then black means you've turned it off. Adding a device, you click on Add Devices. First up, we have SIP phone. This is that physical VoIP phone. It sits on a desk. You find the manufacturer you want to work with, right? And then you find the specific model. So for Cisco, for example, let's say I want to use the 525G2. And then I need to give it a name, right? So I can say Bob's phone, for example. And then I need the MAC address for the phone. The MAC address is unique to each device, right? Usually a sticker on the back of the phone, or if you have the phone powered on, usually under menu status, there's an option for MAC. And you would just enter that information here and then click on Create Device. After you click on Create Device, the only thing you need to do within the dashboard is assign it to a user. But on the phone, you need to get into the phone's web user interface, right, the web UI, and enter in a URL. Basically tell the phone on its auto provisioning tab, hey, go to this website and get your config file. It does so, the phone will reboot a couple of times and then show up green. Now, for that for the specific URL, as well as like screenshots about where to go, you want to go to our support pages, right? So virtualpbx.com, mouse over support, or just click on support. And then scroll down about a third of the way down on the right under VoIP phones, you're looking for the document called auto provisioning phones. It's going to have screenshots. It will tell you the exact URL you need to put in the format. And in some cases, just verifying settings that are matched the way we need it to be. Next up, we have cell phone. Cell phone and landline are essentially identical, right? Just a different naming. Here, right, you give it a device name, right? So Angela's phone, for example. And then you put the phone number. Now, the main thing to remember here, you have to have that plus sign and the number 1, and then the area code and phone number, right? So full 10 digits, as well as the plus sign and the number 1 ahead of it. And then you would click on Create Device. Now, when Dash sends a call to a cell phone or a landline, right, that phone will ring, you pick up. You will hear, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system that yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call. That doesn't work in every instance, however. So let's go under the advanced options, and this is the default setup. So if, for instance, I'm using, quote, Mike's cell phone here, right? But really what I'm doing is I'm sending it to an automated answering service, for example. Well, the automated answering service can't press 1 to accept a phone call, right? It doesn't have fingers. It doesn't know when to press 1. So what I would do is I put a check mark here and try to allow use of cell phone's voicemail. So now what happens when Dash sends a call to this phone number, right? We hear that pickup tone, we connect the call, right? So then the automated answering service can handle the call at that point. If I'm actually sending it to an actual cell phone and I have this checked, what happens is, right, if Mike isn't able to pick up the call, right, his cell phone voicemail will pick up eventually, right? So we'll hear that pickup tone, we'll connect the call. So the inbound caller ends up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people want it that way, other people don't. That just depends. That's a personal preference. The other thing that comes up every now and then is the keep original caller ID, right? So again, Dash's calls comes in through the Dash. We're sending it out to your cell phone, right? Your cell phone rings, you look at the phone number and it's showing customer Mary's phone number. You're like, I don't know this phone number. I've been getting a bunch of calls about extending my auto warranty and I'm tired of it. You let the call go to voicemail, and then hopefully you can get back around and get a hold of Mary at a later time. Now, if you uncheck this, what happens is when a call comes to your cell phone, instead you see your main company number show up on your cell phone's display. All right, and if we go back to the dashboard here, right, this is the phone number that would show up on your cell phone. So that gives you a way to let you know, oh, it's a work call. So hopefully it's still not a robo-dialer, especially if they had to go through an auto attendant. It's most likely not. But at least that way you know, oh, it's a work call. Maybe I should, and then if you're able to, you can then pick it up versus just automatically assuming it might be a robo-dialer. Next up, under devices, add soft phone. Right, you have a little warning message basically saying about wireless VoIP technology, that the E91 address may not match your current location, so please be aware of that. And then when you close it, you'll get this information here. So now this is set up for a third-party soft phone. Right, so you give it a name, and then you're going to want to copy and paste the SIP username. And if you click on the SIP password box, it will reveal the password, so you can copy and paste that. And again, you want the realm. Right, these three pieces of information you are going to need to program or provision your third-party soft phone or that physical VoIP phone that didn't show up on the SIP phone list. You can add a web phone here. I don't typically recommend it because the web phone, it uses your dash login information to access the web phone page. So until you assign a web phone to a user, you can't make use of it, or none of your staff can make use of it. All right, next up we've got the Greetings Manager, or the Greetings tab. This shows all the greetings on your account. You can see the name here. The source, upload, means you uploaded a file. TTS, it means it's a text-to-speech greeting. And recording means you recorded over the phone. You can download these files so you can listen to them to see if they're still relevant. And you can click on the little wrench icon so you can change the name, right, to make it something more recognizable to you. Or you can delete it if you know you don't need it any longer. You also have an option here to upload a file, right? Give it a name, find the file on your computer. Again, it's going to be .wave.ogg.mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. And then you would click Create Greeting to upload it. Next, we have groups, short for ring groups. These are departments. Adding a group, pretty simple. You just you click on Add Group, then you give it a name, give it an extension number, and then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group, and then you would click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can then click on the name, for example. You can change the name, and then you have these group call attempts. This is how many times the inbound caller will try to attempt every one of your group members. There's little arrows here to the right where you can increase or decrease that. And then you would click on Save Changes. In the members box, here you see all my staff members who are assigned to this group. Along the top here, these are timestamps, right? This last one you can edit, right? So you can make it 600 seconds, for example, or down to 60 seconds, what have you. The default is 120. And right now, when calls come to this group, they're ringing in this order. Now these are sliders, right? So I can adjust this so I can do what's called blast ringing or ring all. All right, and essentially when I do it like this, that means all my staff phones will ring, right, when a call comes in until one of them answers. Now, a couple things. When someone's added to a group, if they have multiple devices on their user, right, all of their devices will ring. Right, so if Angelica here, let's say she has 5 different phones added to her user. She gets a group call on the operator. All 5 of them ring until she answers or someone else answers. All right. Now, let's say a call comes in, Angelica picks it up. She's talking and helping the customer, and then a second call comes in. She will hear a call waiting beep, right? Because she's already on the line, until one of her other staff members here picks up. Now, you can also click and drag on your staff members' names, right? So you can change the order around, do something like that, and then you can click distribute, right? So now I've changed the order, right? And let's say David's on a special project, so I don't want him taking as many calls. And Jan just finished his special project, so he can take the most calls. We can do that instead. All right, so those are the routing options you have available within a ring group. Ring groups also, your staff members can make use of VoIP phones as well as cell phones and landlines. Now, next up, you've got the extension number, right? You can add an extension number so they can have multiple if you want, as well as unassign an existing extension number. Now, you can assign a phone number to a group, right? So you can add from spare, buy a new number. But bear in mind that the phone number on a group, this is going to bypass your hours, right? So if someone knows this phone number and they call in at 2 o'clock in the morning, the people, your staff members' phones will ring at 2 o'clock in the morning. So if they have their personal cell phone, for example, they can still get a call at 2 in the morning because they're in this group, right? For your staff members in a group, they're always in the group, right? There's no way to turn it off, turn it on, log out of the group, what have you. They're just in it. The only option they may have is an option for do not disturb, either on their phone, possibly as a user feature. Groups also have features. First up is ringback. So if you enable this, right, this allows you to upload a media file, right? .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. The main thing you want to make sure is that this file's play length matches the ring time of your group, right? The system is not going to automatically loop the file for you. And then we have next action, right? When you enable it, say if none of my staff members is able to answer the call, what do I want the system to do? In this case, I'm sending it to the main voicemail box, but again, we have a big pull down. I can send them back to my virtual receptionist, right? Open hours. I can send it to one of my advanced call flows. I can send it to a call queue, right? I can send it to a specific device, but again, if there's no voicemail and that person doesn't pick up, call just ends. I can send it to a second group, and I can send it to a specific user and then a specific voicemail box. Allow call forwarding. If you enable this, you're letting your users make use of call forwarding, right? So they're not going to be at their normal desk phone, but they can then have the calls forwarded to their secondary or backup device. And then caller ID prepend. Again, this is for VoIP phones because it's prepend. You can add text or numbers in front of the caller ID to let your staff members know what the call is about. Next up is numbers. These are all the phone numbers on your account and where you're using them. All right, you've got the little gear icon here, so this is where you would update the caller ID, E91, and prepend, etc. Then we got spare numbers. So these are numbers you're not using. So since I'm over my allotment of phone numbers, if I want to decrease my bill, what I want to do is keep an eye up here where it says numbers, and I can remove, put a check mark, and now I have an option to delete. Right, so I can say I want to get rid of these 3 numbers. I just click on delete now. It says, are you sure? I confirm the deletion. It says you have successfully deleted, and now I have less phone numbers on my account. Right, you have the option here to buy, right, local or toll free. Again, and that's just going to add it here to your spare number list, so then you can assign it where you need to later. Right, port, this starts the port process. Port just means you're moving a number from one carrier to another, right? So say from Comcast to VirtualPBX, you would start new port request, you give it a name, and then you select US local or toll free, and then you would click on next. And now the system wants you to upload a PDF. This is, in this case, the bill copy. And then on the following pages, it's going to ask you for like the details of the phone number as well as the physical address associated with that phone number. That will then give you the option to download a blank letter of agency, which you will then want to fill out and then have signed by the appropriate person. Then you would upload that to the system. In terms of the signature, it can be a digital signature, right? Like you get a little media or like JPEG of the signature, that's fine. Then you would upload the file back, that completed and signed LOA back to the system. There's a couple of check boxes you need to check off. Basically, you want to read those saying like don't cancel the other account until the port completes, for example. It's one of the big ones. Then you would click submit, right? Then both the documents get sent to our porting department. You'll get a confirmation email saying that we've received that porting request. By the next business day, you should get a second email from our porting team saying, yes, we did get your port request, and yes, we've submitted it. Here's some things to expect about the port process. If for some reason you're not able to upload those documents or the submission didn't go through, you can still email porting, right? PORTING at virtualpbx.com with the completed LOA and the bill copy. They can still process the port that way. It doesn't have to go through this process. Something to keep in mind on the LOA, right? It asks for company information. That should match what your current carrier has on file for you, right? So whatever business name they have for you, whatever address they have on file for you, that's what should be on there, not what VirtualPBX has on file for you, if they happen to be different. It does ask for a signature, right? You just simply do not type the name twice because that will get rejected. In general, toll-free numbers take about 3 to 5 business days to complete. Local numbers, anywhere from a day, it's the fastest I've seen, but the average tends to be about 2 to 3 weeks, right? And that assumes no problems, right? If there's any kind of rejection that we get, our porting team lets you know. Now, we don't always get specific information about the rejection. Like they'll say the address is wrong. They don't always tell us, oh, the street address is wrong or the zip code was wrong. They'll, but they just say, hey, address mismatch. That's all we can give you. And in those cases, you'd have to verify with the current carrier what they actually have on file for you. All right, next up is users. As I mentioned before, some plans, if you add users, you're increasing your bill, so that's something you want to be aware of. But click adding a user, you just click add user here at the top. You enter the first name and last name. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user. Right, so I wouldn't be able to use support at VirtualPBX for Bob, Mary, and Angela. Right, I'd have to have a different email address for each one of them. As an admin, you then create a new password. And then you enter in an extension number. Now, on this system, I started with extension 1000, right? The system says, hey, extension 1003 is available. I don't have to use that, right? I can clear this out, and I can put in 5210. All right, next up, check mark here is already done for create a voicemail box for the user. That voicemail box is intrinsically tied to that user. So let's say I create user and then add a VoIP phone to this person. They can pick up their VoIP phone, hit *98, it's a feature code, that logs them, that is the auto login to their voicemail box, right? So it's gonna log them right into this voicemail box we just created. At that time, right, let's say it's a new user, the system will prompt them to create a PIN number for their voicemail box so they can access voicemail messages over the phone, as well as to then create a voicemail box greeting, right? Then you get the option here to include the person in the user directory or not, and you can always change that option later. Then we have send emails to an alternate address. So you put another email address here. This will supersede this email address, right? So the email address used for login by default, that is what the system will send voicemail messages to, right? Or the password reset to. But if you put a check mark there for use alternate address and put another address there, the system then sends it to the alternate address. It will not send anything to the email address used for login. And then probably the next most, or probably the most important one in my opinion, send credentials to the user, right? So they have their login information. So then you would click on create user if you only need to create one, or you would create user and add another if you need to add more people. Once you've created a user, right, you can click on their name. You can change their name here. You can change their credentials, right? So their email address and their password. You change their PIN number. This is a temporary fix, but it allows, like, say, your cell phone or landline users to log in and then they can create their own. Right, here's the alternate address where you can turn it on or you can turn it off. And then the option to include in the company directory. This is a pull down, so I can make this user an admin or vice versa. This is the time zone, right? So I can select the city and country. Default, this is the display language, right? So how the web page displays. English, French, German, and Russian are the options. Ringing timeout, this is how much time the system tries to offer a call to the user. Now, by default, it's set to 20 seconds, which is plenty of time for a landline or to most VoIP phones. However, if your user is making use of cell phones, or only a cell phone, for example, you're going to want to increase this to 45, if not to 60 seconds. Right? In terms of how a PBX system handles calls, right? Call comes in, we send it out to the contact device. So if that contact device is a landline, right, we send it out to the landline telecom. They say, oh, we know exactly where that is. Here, go, right? And that phone starts ringing. Whereas if the contact device is a cell phone, right, we send the call to the cell phone provider. They say, hold up, we need to find them first, right? They ping cell phone towers, find you. Then they say, okay, we found them, send the call, right? It's that little bit of delay in terms of technology, but in terms of the ringing time, right, that delay is why you would want a longer ringing timeout for a cell phone than you would on a landline, right? In terms of your end user experience, right, your cell phone rings, you pick it up. You don't know the extra timing that it took to get to you. And then let's say if you want to remove a user, like this was a user for a test case. So let's open this back up. Let's say if I want to get rid of them, that's the option down here at the bottom. Right, and then you have the option to remove their devices from the system, and as well as any conference bridges. You just click on proceed. Now, if you wanted to reuse the devices, for example, you would not click on that first checkbox. But now I have saved money on my bill if I'm on a per user basis. Now, users have an extension box, right, and you can add additional extensions if you want them to. Users can also have their own phone numbers. And right, you can add from spare or buy new numbers. But again, like these phone numbers would bypass the auto attendant, right, or the main menu settings for the office holidays, office hours, etc. So if they had their own cell phone number here, for example, as their device, then they could be getting calls at all hours of the day. You can click on the devices box here for a user. You can add from spare devices, right, a device that's not currently in use, or you can add new. We have these same options as before. Typically under soft phone though, after I get past the warning message, interesting, it's not showing up. Let me try a different user. So if you don't already have a VirtualPBX softphone app on a user, then when you click Add Softphone, you have this option here for Use Third-Party Application. All right, that's the default. But if you want to use the VirtualPBX softphone app, you click on that. So now it says Use VirtualPBX Application. So then you just give it a device name, and then you click on Create a Device, and then you would click on Save Changes down here. Once you click on Save Changes here, Jade here would get an email, all right, saying, hey, your softphone is ready to use. Here's your username and password. They can then download the app to either their phone or to their computer, and then log in and make and receive calls. If they already have a VirtualPBX softphone app on their user, then the system's not going to allow you to add another one. At least that's what I've seen lately. But yeah, see, I have no option to change it because I already have a softphone app on the user. Now, if for some reason I have forgotten my password, right, for this softphone, I can click on Reset Password, and the system will create a new password for me and send me an email with that new login information. All right, likewise, for adding the web phone, right, it's easier here just because you click Add, close, give it a name, click on Create Device, and then click on Save Changes, and then this Jade test account can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net and enter their dash login information and log into the web phone that way. All right, user features. All right, caller ID number. So this comes into play only if a person has their own phone number. Then you would turn it on, and basically what this means is when I make an outbound call, this is from my VoIP phone. This is the caller ID that shows up instead of the main company number, right, under the dashboard. Call forward, you have off, on, or failover mode, right? Off, pretty self-explanatory. On means, hey, forward calls, and then you put in +1 area code and phone number, and then you click on Save Changes. Now, call forwarding is a feature that your staff members can enable themselves. You don't need to do it for them every time, right? From a VoIP phone, there's a set of feature codes that they can use to set up call forwarding and update the call forwarding number, for example. But for most users, what they can do is just go through the user portal and set up the call forwarding themselves. Failover mode, this is for your VoIP phone users, right? When the system detects that their VoIP phone becomes unregistered and a call happens to come into that user at that time, the system will automatically forward it to this phone number. Now, the one thing to remember about the call forwarding is this phone number that I'm forwarding to should not be a device on my user, right? So it should not be added as a cell phone device or a landline device. It shouldn't be, basically, it shouldn't be on the user, period, right? It's just something you use occasionally versus your everyday use. All right. Hot desking. This is a VoIP feature. You create a hot desk ID, and then I would click on Save Changes. So what this is for is if you're in an office environment where you may be at a different desk from day to day, or your staff members may be rotating desks, right? So like, you know, in our pandemic world, people in the US are starting to return to their offices, but maybe they're not going to be required to work 5 days a week anymore, right? Maybe they, hey, you know, odd number staff members, you come in on Mondays and Thursdays. Even number staff members, you come in on Tuesdays and Fridays, right? In that kind of scenario, you don't need to have a desk for everybody, right? Much less a VoIP phone for everybody. So what this allows you to do is, on a Tuesday, I come into the office, I'm sitting at desk number 7, I pick up my VoIP phone, I hit *11 to turn on hot desking. It asks me for my hot desk ID, which I enter, and then it says, calls will be sent to this device. So now any calls to my user will be sent to the device I'm sitting at. End of my day, I pick up the phone, I hit *12 to turn off hot desking. So Now, let's say I come into the office on Friday, someone's already sitting at desk number 7. I'm like, well, that's kind of a bummer. But hey, desk number 1's open and it's got the window seat. So I sit down there. I do the same thing. Pick up the phone, hit *11, enter my hot desk ID, and now I'm getting calls at desk number 1. Voicemail box, right? This is enabled because the voicemail box was created with the user. Now, transcription, I believe that's a plan-specific feature, right? Basically, the system listens to the voicemail and tries to give you a text readout of what it is. So, if you have that feature enabled, that's fine. If that's something you want on the account, you're gonna want to double check with account services to see if it's available on your plan. It just needs to be turned on versus having to change plan completely. Voicemail to email by default is enabled, and what that means is this one here, right? It makes an attachment to the email. So you get an email saying, hey, you have a voicemail, here's the date, the time, and the extension number or user it went to. And then there'll be an MP3 file attached to that email you can just double click on and listen to it on your computer. Now, voicemail boxes are limited to 100 messages per box. So if your staff members, if you want to avoid having that voicemail box's full message, then you can click on this box here to delete messages from the database, right? So after the email goes out, the system says, okay, I'm wiping it from the database. So now that voicemail box can't get full. Fax box, users can have their own individual fax boxes if you want them to. First, you would decide if you're gonna have them have a phone number or an extension. I recommend making use of a phone number just because in general it's a lot easier for everybody. If you do assign an extension, all right, so then you need to find an available extension that's not being used. Right, and then I'll click on Save Changes. Now, when someone wants to fax to me, right, they have to call in the main number, hear their greeting, hit 399, and then click Send Fax. Right, some email or some electronic fax services don't allow for faxing to an extensions necessarily, or that might be an upgrade price. And some fax machines you may not be able to, whether it's because there's not a handset so you can't listen to it, or you don't have the option to put pauses after the phone number to enter an extension. So that's something to be aware of there. So that's why I usually recommend if you want a user to have their own fax box, just make use of a separate phone number. Conference Bridge, if you enable this on a user, the only thing as an admin you need to do is create a PIN number for them and click on Save Changes. Now this PIN number your users can change via the user portal, which we'll be getting to later. Follow Me is for people with multiple devices. And here, let's see if I can get rid of. Oh, that's kind of annoying that that's still there. I'm not sure what's going on with my browser. All right, so I'm just going to disable it first. And then if we go back to it, so when you first enable it, this is what Follow Me looks like. It's basically saying, hey, what devices do you want to ring? Notice on the top here, right, we've got timestamps. This is my total ring duration right now. I can, again, adjust that if I want to. And then I uncheck the devices I want the system to ring, and I've got little sliders, right? So I can do something like this, or like that. Or I can click Distribute, so it evenly splits it between the two. And just like in groups, I can click and drag on the devices and to change the order. Right, and then you'll click on Save Changes. Music on hold. You can have your users have their own hold music. You just click Enable. You would upload a file, right? .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Click the little up arrow icon and then click Save Changes. Customize call recording. So when you first enable it, it looks like this, right? Because the system wants you to decide what kinds of calls are you going to record, right? So inbound internal means coworker Bob called me, right? Versus inbound external means customer Mary called me, right? Outbound internal means I called coworker Bob. Outbound external means I called customer Mary. And then you click on Save Changes. The last feature here, do not disturb. If I enable that on the user, that means calls to the user don't get offered to their phones, right? So if this user is in an ACD queue, they're not going to get offered calls, or in a group, they're not going to get offered calls. Calls that go directly to the user, right? So if someone calls in and enters the extension number, it goes straight to voicemail. Speaking of voicemail, we got voicemail boxes. So here on the page, we have all the voicemail boxes on the account. The user created voicemail boxes, right? The ones that you created with the user, right? They have their name associated with it. You can create your own voicemail boxes, right? Just give it a name, voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and you would click on Create Voicemail Box. Once you've created a voicemail box, if you click on the little wrench icon here, right, you can always adjust the voicemail box number and the PIN number. And then under Advanced, first up is greeting media. So for a manually created voicemail box, you do want to upload a media file, or you want to record it over the phone, right? That's why you would need the voicemail box number and the PIN number. To record it over the phone, you dial into the main number that rings to the virtual receptionist. And then when you hear that main greeting, you hit *97, right? And then the system will prompt you to enter in the voicemail box number and then the PIN number. And I believe its option is 5 to get to personal options to change the voicemail greeting. Or you can simply upload a file, right? .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded mono under 1 megabyte. One thing to keep in mind here, the temporary file, this is for like the vacation out of office message, right? So if you have a temporary file selected, it will supersede the media file that's selected until you put the temporary file back to none. Right. Then, especially for manually created voicemail boxes, you want to add a recipient, right? Because your user voicemail boxes already have one built in. And then you can add more people if you need to, right? Just add additional recipient, put their email address, click add, another box will show up, etc. And then options. So for a manually created voicemail box, once you've added a recipient and a media file, right, then you can click on already set up. And then you can go through these other options, like the messages to the email, right? So they get the attachment. You got the option here to delete after notification, because if someone's already getting the attachment, then you can not have to worry about the voicemail box getting full. You've got the option here to transcribe it as well. And then you would click on Save Changes. Advanced routing. Always takes a little while to load. But what we're trying to do here is get to direct inward system access. Now, this may not show up on your account right away. This is something for new signups you have to ask us to enable for you. What this allows you to do is allows your cell phone or landline users to call into your main number, right, that goes to the virtual receptionist, and then they can log in over the phone so they can make an outbound call. And when they make that outbound call, it's not their cell phone number that shows up as a caller ID, but your main number. Right, so first you would click enable. I normally add, just give it an extension number as well. Right, if you choose, you can, so we can do that, for example. You can also have this show up as a menu option, right? So people can call in and hit enter 9, right? And then entering the system would prompt and enter the PIN number and then dial out. Or if you don't have it as a menu option, then you have it as an extension. So basically you call in, you enter the extension number, the system will prompt you for the PIN, you'll hear dial tone again, then you enter area code and phone number you're trying to reach. And then by default, what happens is when you make that outbound call, instead of my cell phone number showing up, right, it's going to be the 702 number, my main company number, showing up as the caller ID. Now, as I said, by default for new accounts, this is not an enabled feature. And the concern for it is that if someone is able to figure out your PIN number, they can log in over the phone and make outbound calls on your account, and you may not know about it right away, right? Unless you end up checking your call logs every day, you won't know about weird outbound calls until you get your bill, in which case, that might result in sticker shock. Speaking of the call logs, let's go to them next. So this shows your call activity on the account. The little green arrow to the right means that's an inbound call that came into the system. And let's see if we can get a longer one here. All right, looks like those are just calls going to the auto attendant. There we go. So here you have a call, it came into the system and then rang 2 devices, and I can see what happened in terms of, like, this one lost raise means someone else picked it up to call. All right, it looks like it's this is the user that actually picked up. But you can scroll down, and normally what you want to see at the end of a call, or in this case originally canceled, so the inbound caller hung up. But most of the time you want to see normal clearing. That tells you a call ended normally. Occasionally we will see something when we click on the details of a call. Right, no answer, right? The person didn't pick up. But sometimes we'll see for VoIP phone recovery on timer expire. That normally indicates a network issue of some sort, which means we know we have to go into some troubleshooting. Now you can download these files. It's just download to CSV. You also have custom, so you can enter in a specific date range as well. All right, feature codes. I've already mentioned a couple of these. Right, so these are essentially phone-based dial pad shortcuts to access features. These are all available also on the support pages under feature codes. There's also a document called the phone commands cheat sheet. It's a PDF, it's a single page. It has these as well as a brief description of what they do. All right, so we've been in the dashboard this whole time. So let's go over to ACD queues. Right, ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. Right, this is a call center feature. It's, as far as I know, it's not included in any plan. It's an add-on feature. The add-on price, I believe, varies depending on the plan, though. So I believe it starts at $15 per month, and on some plans it might be $30 per month. There's also ACD Queues Pro, which I believe starts at $99 per month, and it has some more advanced features. Let's go ahead and go through it. So normally you would just click on Add New Queue, but I'm going to click on the little gear icon here to look at the existing queues. So first up, you would give it a queue name, and then you have the option here to have the queue have a phone number or an extension. Right, it gets one or the other. Then we got the routing strategy. Now, unfortunately, the pull down is not working here, but most idle, that means whoever's been waiting for the call the longest gets the next call that comes in, right, among my staff members. There's ring all on the standard queues. Pro queues does not have ring all currently, but that just rings all your staff members at the same time. right? There is round robin, which will equalize out over time. And then there is least calls, which is the least amount of connected calls, right? So let's say Bob has 2 connected calls, Mary has 5 connected calls, right? So Bob spoke to 2 people, Mary spoke to 5. Next call comes in and goes to Bob under least calls. And then there's least offered. Least offered is the combination of completed and missed calls. So let's say in that Bob and Mary scenario, right? So Bob has spoken to 2 people, but he's been offered 20 calls. Mary's spoken to 5 people, but she's only been offered the 5 calls. Under least offers, the next call that comes in goes to Mary. Now, in those last 2 scenarios, let's say Dylan signs in a couple hours after Bob and Mary have already been in the queue, right? He gets the next call that comes in and will continue until he matches one of the other 2. Right. Hold treatment, you can upload a file, right? .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono. Now, under ACD Queues Pro, you actually have more options of hold treatment in terms of you can include things like announce their position in the queue, announce their expected hold time. You can have multiple media files play. You can also pause the hold treatment. All right, queue timeout in seconds. This is how much time the inbound caller will wait on hold as a maximum. Queue call limit. This is the number of people who can wait on hold. This is on top of the people who are already talking to staff members, right? So if Bob and Mary are both handling calls, I can have 4 more people wait on hold on top of those 2 calls. All right, timeout immediately if empty. If I have no staff members logged in and I enable this, that means if a call comes in, the system will treat it as if that caller already hit 2,000 seconds. Escalation queue. Basically, if all my staff members are busy, send calls to this secondary queue. Right, that means I would have to pay for a second queue. And then we have escalation call flow after timeout. So after this 2,000 seconds is reached, where am I sending the call? In this case, I'm sending it to Michael's voicemail box, but again, we have pull down, so I can say none, meaning just end the call. Right, advanced call flows, I can send it to one of my other attendants. I can send it to a specific device. I can send it to a group. I can send it to the directory, right? So I can do dial by name. I can send it to a media file, and I can send it to users as well as to a voicemail box. Now, one thing to keep in mind about the escalation queue, right? So call comes in here and then goes to the escalation queue. The system still keeps track of this 2,000 timer for that call that went to the escalation queue. So if the call is even in the second or even a third queue, because of escalation queues, once it hits 2,000 seconds, the system will still send it back to this voicemail box. So it's that first queue in a chain. You want to make sure you have that escalation call flow after timeout enabled or set to someplace. All right, agent recovery time measured in seconds. Basically, after they're done with a queue call, how much time do they get before the system offers them a second queue call? Sometimes it's 0 for some people. Other people, they have it set to 30 seconds. Basically, it's time to get a drink of water or fill up, finish their CRM notes, etc. Unfortunately, you may not be able to see it, but forced away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, that means if a staff member misses a call, the system will put them in away mode and they have to mark themselves ready to take calls. And then we have agent connect timeout measured in seconds. It's how much time we're trying to offer a call to a user. All right, over here, we're going to click on members. So this shows my available staff members to be in queues. Right? I've already assigned them so they can be in my queues. They're not in all of them necessarily, but they have access to the ACD queues page. If I click on manage members, I get here. So see, I have people here who are not over here on the right, right? So these are people I could add over to become members of the queue. Or likewise, I can take people out because that's no longer part of their responsibilities. Right, so like I could click on Taylor here and click add as a member. So now I'm moving him to be part of my call center group. Now if I go back to queues, if I click on a queue here, right, I can add staff members by clicking add agents. So these are my available people who have queue access, right? Like Taylor, who I just added, and these are people I've already assigned to the queue. And now I can always, right, click and drag and move people around. We can add Taylor in, can move Peter out, that sort of thing. And then at the bottom, click on Save Changes. Now, once you have staff members added, if you click on Add Managers, you choose the staff of, or which of your assigned agents you can move over to the right to become managers for that particular queue, right? So like I can move Marie over if I wanted to, or back. Now, so once you've created the queues, you've assigned your staff members, right? When they log into Dash, right, they'll have an option to get the ACD queues. And then when they get here, they click on Begin Session. So now I've logged into this queue, right? But I'm red because I'm marked away, right? When I'm ready to take calls, I click on here, I click Mark as Ready, and now I'm green. Now, there are feature codes to log into the queue and to mark as ready. You basically, from your VoIP phone, hit *20 to log in, and then click Send on the phone. You don't get a notification that it went through. You hit *20, hit Send, and you're marked as ready. Now, over here, you got the little phone icon, and you want to select a device, right? You want to select one of your VoIP devices to make sure you're getting calls properly. It also can impact our customers who make use of advanced reporting. In terms of the little color band here, if I'm on an inbound call, this will turn blue. If I'm on an outbound call, excuse me, I'll be yellow. If I'm on wrap up time, it'll turn gold. And then if I want to go to lunch, I would mark myself away. End of my day, I would click End Session. In terms of ACD Queues Pro, they have another section in between here for performance, so you can compare agents to each other directly. Probably the key features, though, of ACD Queues Pro is managers can eavesdrop on a call. They can whisper to their agent to help an agent on a call, as well as barge in on a call to basically take over. You also have more information available to managers on the queue page under ACD Queues Pro. Like you can see like calls in queue and how long they've been waiting, as well as like activity logs, etc. All right, blacklists. This is available on all accounts. This allows you, I'm going to click Edit Blacklist, to create a list of phone numbers that you don't want to connect to your account. Right. So you click Add to create a new list. Otherwise, you would just click on an existing list. Right. Give it a name. Block anonymous. That means if we don't get valid inbound caller ID, right, and you turn it on, that means those phone calls will get a busy tone when they try to reach any of your phone numbers. Otherwise, you go down here, you click on Add Number, you put +1 area code and phone number, and click Add. And that means that phone number, when they try to call any of your phone numbers on your account, they get a busy tone, right? Because let's say it's like a little kid who's doing prank calls, or it's a robo-dialer, or what have you. So then any adjustments here, you click on Save Changes. You go back to Settings. And then you make sure that list is over here under Selected, right? So these two lists are active, meaning the phone numbers that are on them cannot reach my account. Whereas these two lists here are inactive, not being used for whatever reasons. And then you would click Update after you've moved this list over. Right, Dynamic Caller ID. This is a plan-specific feature. So if this sounds interesting to you, you're going to want to talk to our account services team. What this does is allows your VoIP phone users to change their outbound caller ID essentially on the fly. Basically, you create a rule, and if you like edit next to this rule, in this case, I'm saying I'm using a feature code, right? So my VoIP phone user will hit *7 and then dial the number they're reaching out to, and this is the phone number that would show up as their outbound caller ID instead of my main company number. Right. Likewise, you can set up a rule like I did up here, whereas whenever my VoIP phone users dial a 408 area code phone number, their caller ID will change to be a 408 phone number. Right, and then you would click on Save Changes. Now, the phone numbers you can select to display, they have to be on your account. You can't just have a random phone number show up. All right, the fax monitor, or fax manager, excuse me. This allows you to look at the various fax boxes for your staff members and to see what they are doing in terms of their faxing capabilities. You can see the email to fax logs. If you had details here, there's usually a little eyeball icon over here to the right. You can click on that to get some extra information about why the outbound fax failed. Usually we see things like the user wasn't found because someone used their personal email address instead of the company email address, or no valid attachment. Next we have the monitor. This is also a plan specific feature, but basically lets you see the status of your staff members, right? So I can see all my employees. These are everybody. I can see who's available versus who's busy. Over here on the right, I can see active calls. And then I can also see who's on a parked call and what the parking spot number is. A number manager. This takes you to your spare numbers page. Right, so you can, again, unassign numbers, you can buy, port, etc. The recording manager, I don't think this will load for me because it doesn't normally. This takes you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. So you would use your dash login there, and you can view your call recordings. So you can download them, you can delete them. The storage limits on an account vary depending on the account. So you'd want to check with our account services team to verify what your storage limit is and what these overages are, especially if you've enabled call recording. Reports, this is in beta. This is advanced reporting. You can create your own reports, right? So you can see, get better information about what's going on with your calls. We do have our marketing team actually made a demo that's on our YouTube channel. Should be a reports demo, I believe it's what it's called. I'll have to double check that. But it's worth a look through if you're interested in reports. And then if you are, that is something you need to talk to our account services team because it's not available on all plans. The voicemail manager. This lets you view voicemails on the account. Right, so you can get to any user's account. We can go to mine because I know I don't have delete after notification enabled. So now you can see, right, their new messages, their listen messages, the date and time it was received, where it came from, and the phone number, the number they dialed, the length of the message. Then you have the option here to play back, download it. If you put a check mark on a message, then you can move it to a different user's voicemail box, right? So this went to the wrong voicemail box, right? You can choose to mark it for deletion or as listened or just keep it as new, etc. Webhooks. This is if you want to link Dash to other software. Again, it's a plan specific feature. So if you're interested in webhooks, you're going to want to talk to our sales team. Actually, they have more information on the webhooks as well as some white papers. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see some of what we have done in terms of linking Dash to other software. And then lastly, we have the user portal, which I've referenced a couple times. So every user on their account has their own user portal, right? You as an admin cannot go see someone else's user portal, but you can get to all their information. So or pretty much all their information. Right, so here I can see my own voicemails. Right, again, I can see the date, the time, who called, what number they called, the duration. I can play back, I can listen to it, I can put a check mark, and I can mark it as new, listen, or delete it, right? I can't move it to someone else myself. That's something only an admin can do. Call history, I can see my inbound and outbound call history, as well as missed calls, right? So the date, the time, who the caller came from, what number it went to, and for how long. You can see the fax manager if I had a fax box on this user. Contact list. This is all your your account contacts, right? So all your users, your groups, etc. This is not something I as a staff member could add on to, right? So like your sales team, they're not going to be able to add their contact list to this, their client list to this contact list, right? Because this is something everybody on the account has access to. The conference tab, we're going to start over here to the far right, right? So here you see the number. This is their moderator pin and their participant number, so they can edit these themselves to make it what they want, as well as these options here. So the first one is when people join, are they muted? And or when they joined, are they deafened? As well as do you want to play entry and exit tones? When you're actually in a conference, up here, you can invite other Dash users to a conference, right? You can lock a conference so other people cannot join. You can mute everybody. You can unmute everybody. You can end the conference. Also within a conference, on the participants, you can mute a specific person as well as kick a specific person if you want to. And then we have settings and devices. Right, so this is where your users would enable their own call forwarding and the phone number it goes to, as well as see the status of their devices. And then they would click save. And that is everything. I'm gonna wait just a minute in case customer has a question. I'm gonna also get this back to the dashboard. All right, looks like there's no questions coming through. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream, and we will be back next Tuesday, which will be June 1st at 10 a.m. Pacific. Thank you very much for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.